Thank you for coming back. This is part 2 of our conversation with Vero and Melvin. What's keeping you from reaching your full potential?
The stages of life also build character in you. And there's going to be soft spots in your journey of life, like becoming a first-time mother versus becoming a mother already of a third child.
Yeah.
Right?
No, but I think you still got to go through the same thing.
Yeah, but where I'm going is where I'm trying to go is it's a journey that once you get there, you're like, okay, there are some tender moments where it's very tough, but the experience that you've gotten also builds you and kind of prepares you for that moment. Whether it's the exact same moment or not, you're almost already expecting the worst.
I think about it as in, we know every kid that you have is a different, it's completely different. You don't go through the same thing. But let's imagine that we're right here, right? We're in a specific space in which we're comfortable. We already know our life. We know what's going on. So imagine having the first kid going into an unknown, right? Now you have the strength to face that unknown, to get through it, right? The next time the second kid comes, sounds like we're putting kids. Hopefully nobody gets this.
Hey, kids are
loses
joy.
encouragement.
They're awesome.
They're awesome. Everybody should go have kids when you get married.
Yes.
So imagine then having a second kid. It won't be the same experience, but you've already dealt with dealing with the unknown. Like you've already gone there. I think that's one of the biggest fears
You
in
can carry
people.
on. So keep going.
There's light at the end of the tunnel, essentially, right? It's stages of tunnels. There might be different tunnels, but
It's time, but he's telling you something.
No.
Part 2.
Soon, no,
AJ
but-
needs a sister, brother.
I know. No, but I
you
just
go.
think like, but
Get to work.
but I'm like, I guess like, because I can relate a lot to like moms and stuff, but also like to encourage just anyone, like to be an encouragement to like all people, because I was once young, so I guess the fact I didn't want to miss out on that calling. Like I know I've had it, but I've always been afraid to say, I know this is my calling, because like, I mean, if you can tell right now, I really like speaking, but I just,
That's your calling.
let me just grab this microphone.
You know what? Actually, no, that's the perfect segue into what I was mentioning with purpose, because someone told me, talking about that, about being encouraged and finding the encouragement to do something. Somebody told me before to be careful of having encouragement with no direction, because at the end of the day, it's just an emotional, an emotional.
Like I said,
what would you call it? Like it's
emotions.
just acting on emotions. I guess you could say. And what happens with that is you're gonna start very encouraged, and then you're gonna get tired of it, and you're gonna quit.
Yep.
Like when people start things that they don't finish. No, but then we lost our guest.
Thank God that's not me.
No. But and then that brings us to what you were just mentioning, and you mentioned earlier, which is purpose, right?
Yeah.
And so when we talk about finding the encouragement to do things, then we want to be clear and say we want to find encouragement to do the things that God is calling us to do, that to fulfill our purpose. And a lot of times it's really hard. Like you say, you've always pictured yourself talking to women or talking to people. You like to talk, talking to anybody. With
Except
me,
strangers.
like you can ask Rachel, I've been talking for so long about doing something like this, a podcast, but I'm so uncomfortable in front of the cameras. Like I'd rather be behind cameras, right? I'm so uncomfortable. And I tell you, this is how nervous I get a lot of times. Hopefully it hasn't come out yet. But a lot of times when I get uncomfortable talking, my accent comes out. My Hispanic accent comes
Te
out.
sale, bro.
Yeah, it just comes out. Pero, we had kind of like a what do you call it? I was gonna say come to Jesus moment, but that's not what it was. Like kind of like sort of like a revelation or something like that.
Yeah.
An inspiration or something like
there you
that. And then with pastor preaching, like you were saying, like everything he's been preaching is like, man, we need to get up and do something, because if it is our purpose to do this, if I miss my mark here to do this purpose, right? To accomplish this purpose. So God used somebody else because I didn't do it. Then I miss it again over here. God used somebody else. And then I miss it again over here because I'm too afraid or whatever, right? And then my question was like, man, like if that's what's happening, how many times can you screw it up, right? Or can you not listen to the Holy Spirit or to God's voice and fulfill your purpose before God cuts you off? You know what I mean? And what does it mean for God to cut you off? I don't even know. I don't know what that even means, right?
Yeah.
But definitely,
But I don't want to find out.
I don't want to find out.
Find out how either.
And so,
right.
and so then, but then you start thinking about these things, right? What is my purpose, and what's it gonna take to get there, right? Mm-hmm. And definitely, I think, because my friend was saying like, yeah, no, encouragement is no good, and I was like, well, no, I think you need encouragement at least at the beginning to get going, you know, the motivation, you know, to get going. But then I agree, you know, it's just the fuel that's gonna get you started, but you need the direction in which you're going, right? And then that's where what you were talking about, which is a purpose. You know, what is your purpose? It's especially hard for you guys, I think, as moms, right? Because you just mentioned the challenges, right? You're trying to go day to day, and you know you have all these things you have to do, and all this responsibilities, and one of the biggest ones are the kids, right? You know, there's certain things in life that you have to be really careful with, that you have to take care of, right? Your spiritual life is one of them, obviously. Your mental health is another one. Physical health is obviously very important as well. Not to me apparently, but you know, to other people. No, but there's things that are very important. Having kids is so hard. Like I call Rachel during lunch, right? And it's so hard just to have a 5-minute conversation with Rachel because the kids are in the background speaking, right? And calling her, Mom, what about this? Can I get this? I can't find this. And then Elias is crying behind her. So how do you find the time to, you know, take care of your spiritual life, your mental health,
So, I don't know, Rachel, you want me to go first?
Yeah. Go.
Okay.
She's like, yeah, so I can copy it for you.
You got 30 seconds.
Okay.
Go.
No, but like, for example, for me, I once heard this, I don't know if it was like on a radio preaching or something. I think it was maybe someone from Gateway. They had one of the pastors had said that it was so important. Communication is important. We all know that, right? And he's like, we have to learn to communicate with our kids, just like we communicate with our husbands. And he's like, what? Because a lot of times what happens is when the kids come in, there's a lot of time for your husband. But he's like, but that shouldn't be the case. Like the kids have nothing to do with your time with your husband. And he said that with their marriage growing up, that they would tell the kids, look, Mom and Dad are going to sit here and we're going to have our alone time while they're awake. And he's like, if you want us to be good parents, like you have to allow us to have this quality time, you know, so you can't come interrupt us. It's only going to be for an hour, 30 minutes to an hour. You sit here, you do what you need to do. When we're done, we'll come and talk to you. And he's like, it sounds crazy. He's like, but our kids would never come. We could sit at the table, drink coffee, and we had time to interact. And he's like, but why wouldn't we do it in the room? He said, like when they were asleep. And he said, because they need to see Mom and Dad interact.
Role model.
They need to see Mom and Dad have a conversation. And so when I heard that
in Mark. Was it Mark?
I don't remember.
It was Dr. Jimmy Evans because he was talking about marriage, and you know he's a big marriage. You know his main ministry is actually towards marriages.
Yeah, and so once I heard that, I was like, that is so true. And so I have been slowly trying to like put that in right now, because AJ, he like the moment Melvin comes like to talk to me, he's like, Mama, you know, but how I started is I've been doing the workouts, even though he still bothers me, but I'll be like, AJ, Mommy's gonna work out because Mommy needs 30 minutes to just be better for herself. If you want Mommy to play with you, like Mommy has to do this. And so I get him his toys and I get everything he needs and I sit him to the side and I say, you're gonna play with your trucks and Mommy's gonna work out. And so that's how I'll like prioritize that. And I'm learning the moment he sees me put on my workout clothes and stuff, he's like, oh, Mommy work? And I'm like, yeah, Mommy's gonna work. So remember, it's only for a little bit and then Mommy's gonna play. So he's starting to understand. He's always in my videos, people are like always laughing, but I mean, he's sitting there for a good like 15, 20 minutes before he interrupts my video, you know? And so once it's over, he's like, yay, because he knows, okay, now Mommy's going to come hang out.
Well, I think one of the things that I think you're kind of leading to is whether he's 2, he's not going to literally understand the words, the concept of what you're telling him, but you're practicing with your actions by the time he's 7, by the time he's 10, by the time he's 12, 13, 14, because then by 15, then they won't care anymore, you know? But I think you're establishing a ground of what you were saying, of consistency, of a foundation that it's not going to, when we add towards the family, or when he gets older, it becomes, hey, you know what, now mommy may not be working out, dad and mom have to talk, and you're creating that environment.
And I think
it's a role model thing.
Yeah.
'Cause I remember my parents, I mean, I grew up in a home where there was days where my dad was in and there was days where my dad wasn't in. But when he was in, they were so loving with each other. You know, my dad used to love dancing, and he would like put music on. He'll put Selena on, and then he'll grab my mom by the hand, and they'll start dancing in the living room. And to me, that was like the best.
Yeah.
So I always try to like grab at it and be like, oh, okay.
I'm a block of wood when it comes to
Yeah.
music.
He'll be so stiff, but the kids see it, and it's a type of role model.
Yeah,
so.
and you have to. That's the thing, Melissa. You have to be consistent. And so going back again to, but now I'm like, oh, I'm consistent at that too. I'd always telling him that. Dang, I'm just finding like I needed this conversation.
That's what I thought.
You're welcome.
I'm going
Reason
to
for the
write-
blog.
I knew this
Reason for the
conversation was
blog.
going to be
Now you're gonna have to
useful.
like pop my hand because it's getting big. I'm just kidding. But
I can do that.
No, but so it is consistency, because I've noted, I've been doing it for so long that AJ's starting to know. He's starting to see. And so I try to do that me time, of course, because I was feeling for a long time, like I said, I was lost after having him. And then afterwards, I'm just like, okay, I started to feel like I was always giving, but who was giving, like, how was I receiving? And so that little 30 minutes that I get to be active, that I get to just have for me and feel good, helps me to prepare my day. So 2 things, like if I work out and if I pray, I know my day's gonna be good. I'm like, yes, this is good. The moment something goes off, I'm like, but I'm learning to, Melvin used to, if I didn't work out, Mel was like, you're gonna have a bad day, right? Because you didn't work out. But now I'm like, no, that can't be the case. I have to just continue.
And the funny thing, it would put her in a bad mood. Like, seriously, even though it's funny, I could tell her in her demeanor, in her cooking, in her,
Melvin's
But I
like,
had to like,
Melvin's like, why don't you work out your arms with making tortillas?
yeah, and it would make a difference. And so I had to tell her, failure is okay. If your day doesn't go the way it's planned,
because that's the thing. I don't like failure either.
yeah, she doesn't. Well, she
I
didn't
don't
like
like my
failing.
day being
She
out
like
of
failing
order.
at the agenda that she had created
like
for herself.
because I
You're
had
gonna
a
love that book.
I'm with you on that.
Because I had already met my schedule. And so I'm like, oh, when the days are great, it's like, oh, this is going to be a great day. But the moment, so I had to learn that even though things were not the way I was wanting them to be, because you were asking, like, how do we make that time? Well, I know that for a fact, there are 2 things that I have to do. And that is, I want to work out and I want to pray. If I don't work out in the morning, okay, so when is another time that so say the house is like super dirty, that's my priority, okay? And so, well, now that I'm working, like I consider my little, this coaching thing, like now I have a job, so I have to do it,
There you go, Melvin. Stop telling her to get a job.
I can't let my team down, no. But like, how
Priorities,
can,
guys.
Sounds like you're playing Call of Duty.
no,
Can't let my
and
team
so
down.
like, how can
She's in war zone.
like, how do I like try to put it out, So like, I mean, before, like if I wasn't able to pray while AJ fell asleep, because say someone called me or like, whatever. Okay, I have to I have to do it when he goes to sleep. There's no question, because it's like, that you need it. It has to become a desire. It has to become something just like food. Like you can't live without it, And so I think those things, like I found what was important, the things that I really needed to really focus on. If the house didn't get clean, that's okay. No one was going to come. There's always like tomorrow, and thankfully Melvin helps like a lot, especially now that he's home. If you need help cleaning, like he's really good at cleaning. But
Mr. Clean right here.
Mr. Clean.
but like I think it's just like trying, and I think we have to just communicate and say, look, Mel, or like tell our other our spouse or just in whatever, even if you're not married and you're the only one and you're having a hard time like making a schedule for things because you feel so busy. Like we have to really sit down and prioritize. Like what are the things that matter most? But I will tell you, if you pray, God will put everything in order. I don't know if that's ever happened to you. Like when you pray, it feels like everything just falls. into place.
So relieved.
You know what? You know what's so crazy? And then I want you to, after this, I want you to tell us, you know, what it is that works out for you as far as trying to balance your day, your life, and everything.
Right.
But you're talking about when you pray, everything kind of works out. I remember a couple of prayers ago, right? There's things that we've been praying for, right? In my family, like some of the problems that we've been going through, and we got to the point where me and Rachel are thinking, you know, why is God not answering or taking so long to answer? And I was reading the part of the Bible where Moses, was it Moses?
I don't know which one.
Where Moses tells God that he wants to see his glory,
Moses.
right? I never know the names, man. I always get the names confused. Anyways. So Moses is telling God, let me see your glory. God tells him that I'm going to let my goodness pass before you. Okay. He says goodness. He says my goodness, my, what is another word that he uses in the next chapter? I forgot. How do you say, mercy, my mercy, my goodness and my mercy. And so then you think about it, and it's like, wow, man, like God has been answering us every day, because when Moses is telling God, let me see your glory, God is telling him, my biggest attribute is my mercy towards you, my goodness towards you. Every morning that we wake up and we have a chance to live and to ask for forgiveness again is God's mercy, you know, in our life. You know, every morning that this special someone that I'm praying for gets to wake up every morning, you know, it's got mercy on their life. And then we understand, you know what? God is answering us. God is, you know, there with us, you know. But anyway, so the next morning, like we prayed the next morning, well, not morning, during the day, we get amazing news, which is that this person that we've been praying for decided to go ahead and seek the help that we've been trying to get him to seek. And it was one of the best news for all of our families. And it's just crazy. But anyways, I'm going to shut up. And I don't know if you have something you want to share as far as how you kind of balance your day, your spiritual life, your mental health.
Me?
Or did your mental health already go out the window?
It probably did. No, I think it was more of, I mean, our kids are pretty old already.
They're older.
Yeah, they're older. So it's easy for me to talk to them and to set schedules with them. Be like, okay, you're going to do this and this at this time. At this time, so-and-so is going to come over. You need to have, you know, this part of your house, your responsibility, your chores clean and done. So to me, scheduling, I guess that would be how I do my thing.
That's anybody who knows Rachel has 20 alarms throughout the day. An alarm for every single thing.
And she's a sergeant,
so
dude. I think I heard her today, and she had some key words for the kids, and you know they were PG words, but it was commands, and then I was like, maybe I should be quiet too, you know?
It's called sign language too. Stop.
She'll scream something at the kids like vacuum, and the kids know what it means, like code.
It's code. It's not even the vacuum. We don't even know no vacuum, Mom.
Even Melvin was standing in line with the kids and everything.
I was raised with somebody in the military, so I can't. It is what it is. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah.
But to me, it's scheduling. I have to, and I know sometimes I don't, like, things get out of schedule. But like Vero said, I'll try to find a way somehow to squeeze in prayer. I have to pray every day, and I do. Ed knows it. If I'm folding laundry, I fold the laundry while I'm praying. And there's been times where the Holy Spirit hits me at that moment. I'm like, okay, guys, take care of Elias. I need to let it out. And I do. And then I call Ed afterwards. Siempre, I always call him and be like, God, touch my heart today. And I was praying for this person, you know, this person, or you himself. I'd be like, you're going to receive, you know, today. And so it's so I'm very sensitive towards the Holy Spirit, and I let him like take over. And but yeah, the schedule. That's how
that helps you a lot.
Yeah.
Well, that's you know, if I could just listen to you guys, that always builds us up, because I think a lot of times the most difficult thing to minister is our home.
Yes.
And it's sometimes, you know, we feel like it's awkward. It's easier to minister. I think it's sometimes easier to minister and pray for people outside your home. And it's so hard to just take some time and say, you know what, babe, you know what, you know, brother or sister, that I really felt from God to encourage you today, because we always feel like we're home together. We should be encouraged already, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that's something that I've learned as a husband, to encourage Vero to be there for her. And she's because she's always been there for me. You know, and I think it's opened up a new season for me she's always supported me in music. She's always supported me in anything ministerial wise. She's like, you're really good at what you can do. And she's always cheered my accomplishments and the victories, and has been with through the failures. And then right now I feel like it's a journey for me, a season for me to replicate that, to mirror that back. Yeah. You always hear that you always gotta have a strong woman, right, behind you. But I feel like they need to have a strong man in addition, but not a strong man that can uplift them spiritually, you know, and help them out. You know, she laughs. She always laughs that I like the house clean. But it hit me one time. I'm like, well, if I like it clean, why don't I help? Right. You know, it's that's and now I tell her sometimes she's like, well, you're vacuuming it. It's like, yeah, because I don't want the dog hair on the floor. It's not that it should be clean. It's that I don't want it, so I just do it, you know. And I think that's brought us closer. Little things like that has just really bonded our relationship even to another level after 6 years, 7 years of marriage. So
that's really cool. That's very cool. Well, you know, one of the things that we've been covering in the young marriages class, right, young couples, is how, you know, selflessness is what kind of makes you thrive a lot better in marriage versus being selfish, right? And what does that look like? There's many ways in which it looks like, right? But the biggest thing that can save or break a marriage is basically you saying, for example, if you want to say, you know what, Vero never cleans. You know, this house is always dirty because of Vero, right? And then Vero say, yeah, well, I mean, you're always leaving your stuff around, so at that point, you guys are kind of like throwing the blame at each other, right?
Did you guys record this or what?
I know. Are y'all guys in our house?
No, yeah. How you going, Park?
Usually
from 4 to 6.
Big Brother's watching.
No, and then, you know, the selflessness looks more at what can I do to make things better, as opposed to what is she doing wrong, you know? And the selfishness in us is gonna say, not only that, like it takes us to a space where it's like, you know what, I am doing wrong. You recognize that you're doing wrong, but her selfishness is worse than mine. We're in this situation because her situation is worse than mine. And it's not. Like, it's both, right? Like, both of us need to sit down and understand that, hey, I should be doing more. And then she should think that she should be doing more on her own. Right. If I have to tell her, it'd be sort of like telling God, you know, if you can save everybody, why don't you just do it instead of people choosing to serve you or to be saved? But I think that's one of the biggest things that you guys are talking about, helping around the house, being more selfless. It's one of the things that will go a long way.
We kind of went from rejection to
I know we're all over the place.
A little bit of bondage, but I think it all falls together because you know, I think I believe that, you know, failures do make us better. We have to learn from them. We have to learn to accept that rejection is part of that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be your foundation, you know, and we can grow from that. And failures in life, I think what I've heard today a lot has been, you know, the journeys of life that as a mother you go through, as husbands we go through, and then just as we do ministry together, have the privilege to do that together too, that there's going to be failures and victories with that, and I think we just gotta learn from them and bounce back, and don't let that bring us down, and then allow those tools to be used by the enemy. Because a lot of times it's like we're all self-doomed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
we bring ourselves down. And I guess if we're closing it out, like to go back on how we started was like we had a conversation of, but you are good. And it's like, well, I would have never thought that you had the fear of rejection, that you were worried about these things. And so I think it's just it comes to, we have to see in ourselves the purpose that God has. We have to believe it, and we have to be confident.
Yeah.
You know, confident in that what God has called us to do is to win. That's our main purpose, is to win souls for Him. And how are we going to do it? Like, how are we going to accomplish it? Okay. Not in our home. I mean, like, not contained in our four walls, because our family knows. So it's like, the enemy doesn't want us to do that, so he's gonna bring all of those thoughts, all of those fears, you know, to try to keep us from that purpose.
Yeah, and once he accomplishes, like once he knows that he can get to you, he starts using your surroundings.
Yeah.
And then once he starts using your surroundings, he can't get to our surroundings. Okay, he starts expanding.
Yeah. And
So,
it's something really cool. Sorry, see how I interrupt. But something really cool. Sorry.
I was gonna interrupt you, but go ahead.
Something really cool that was told to me like a few days ago when I met with a friend, and I was telling her about like why I chose to do whatever. And so she said, well, she spoke to me and she encouraged me really good, and she said, don't think that you're not going to be rejected. Don't think that you're not going to fail. Like, don't start it and think, because then when it happens, then you're going to go back. Mm-hmm. She said, but know that God is going to be with you, and remind yourself that those are things that are going to distract you to try to take you away from the purpose that God has. That means that there's something going to happen because these things are going to get in your way. So if someone rejects you, or if someone says something that you're like, oh man, don't be afraid. If you fail at something, like, don't say like, okay, well, yeah, see, it wasn't meant to be. I already messed up. Like
when we started babying me at church, that was my goal. That was like, I know God is calling us, right? I even told it, God is calling me to talk to these women, because like every person that I would talk to, every woman that I would talk to, they were going through some depression, through anxiety, through postpartum, and like some struggle with their child. So when I spoke with Elvia and everything, and we got together, we were like, well, let's do baby and me. Maybe we need to socialize with other women. We need to socialize with other people. So I got over that.
I think one of the best things that you can do, like in this situation, is when you realize that you're not alone. Like if you're going through something, like to me that was pretty crazy. Like to know that you're not 100% secure and you just jump into things. But you one of the things that you mentioned right now, Vero, when you were talking right now about fear of rejection, I was thinking you got to look at the other side of the coin as well. When we say don't be afraid of rejection, we're not saying you're perfect, because I'm saying this because you're reading this really cool book right now, and one of the things on that book, it talks about postmodernism and how the new mentality is you're fine just the way you are, you're okay.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm not saying that's not true. However,
you're enough.
A lot of times we don't leave room for improvement. And what happens to a lot of people is I say, you know what, I'm good, I'm perfect. The moment we fail, I think that our congressman from Texas, what is Dan Crenshaw, he was saying on the interview, he was like, the reason why you go into the Marine Corps and you see some of the biggest dudes that you've ever seen, and you're like, oh, those guys got it made, they're gonna pass the test like nothing. And those don't make it. Why don't they make it and the skinny dudes do? And it's like, well, it's his mentality. His mentality is already, oh, I got this. I'm not going to fail this. And then the moment you start feeling resistant and you start feeling like you're not going to make it, your whole world just shatters. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so another point of view of seeing it is when you think you're perfect the way you are, you think nothing's going to go wrong. You think, you're good the way you are, right? And then you fail at the things that you're doing. Then we start getting into pointing fingers. Well, it wasn't my fault, it was her fault, or the situation wasn't right, or they didn't really pay attention to me, or they didn't really do what I told them to do. We start creating all these excuses, and I think we need to get out of that, mentality. When we say don't be afraid to try things, we're not saying that you're not gonna fail because you're perfect at it. We're saying that you're probably gonna fail, but it's a learning process, right? Yeah. If you're failing, is because you're learning, not because you suck at it.
Right. And I think I think with as we close out
as we close out for the fifth time.
For the fifth time. No, but I do want to say this as listening to really to all of you guys is our friends, as fellowship, as brothers, as just as mentors. Let's support each other.
Yeah.
Let's support each other. If maybe we've lacked in saying, hey, dude, you do a great job in photography, and I really do mean that, is that a lot of times we're self-conscious about a lot of stuff because we also don't get encouragement from the people that I think should encourage us. And I've seen this in worship teams, and I've told worship teams, and I've told our worship team, is that we celebrate each other. We don't envy each other. We don't. I've seen this unfortunately, in a lot of Christian worship teams where there's always competition, and we grew up in that old school mindset of like, well, that worshiping is better than this one, or that keyword's better than this keyword player, or that singer's better, or that church is better than this church. No. Why is it that we can never compliment each other? Why is it that we can never say, hey, you know what? You hit a really cool note today. Your worship really blessed me today. But more in the sense of like not trying to build their ego, but say, well, wow, like I think your confidence, like you're boosting somebody. And I want to encourage every teams like that.
Because in Andrew's team, most of the little kids are new, but there's like 2 or 3, right, that know how to play. And
Andrew's the best one.
Andrew's
Not supposed to.
No, and
it says every parent in the team.
So I don't know. I think it was last game they won, and it was really good. They played really good. But before we got there, I told Andrew, I told him, hey babe, you're gonna score a goal for me, right? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, no, are you gonna score a goal for me? He's like, yeah. And then I kept telling him, I was like, babe, are you gonna score a goal for me? Yeah, I'm gonna score a goal for you. And then I was like, are you gonna do good? He's like, yeah, I'm gonna do good.
Getting hyped
like,
up.
yeah, I started getting him hyped up, and I was like, you need to tell your teams, okay, whenever they ask you for the ball, you need to say blah blah blah, and then like encourage them so they could play good. So he went into the team very encouraged, I guess, animado.
Very aggressive and encouraged, and
Encouraged to encourage.
Yes.
Right.
So his other 2 little teammates saw that, and se les pegó. So they played really good, and
it's
they
so
won
weird
the game.
because they started
That's
sucking
cool.
the first 5
It
minutes.
was awful,
They scored a
yes.
goal on us. Actually, they started pretty bad, and it's like something clicked, and then the team woke up, and then all of a sudden, like we're just taking shots on the other team's goal, like shot
But
after
the
shot
whole
after
time,
shot.
like me and Nether were like screaming at Andrew, "You got this! You go for it! Shoot! Come on!" And you can hear me like in every video that Nether records. He's like, I'm over here screaming.
You can only hear Rachel and the other 2 moms for the other 2 kids.
But I think, como dices tú, like if you encourage one, and if you do like you say you're doing this, I'm pretty sure you're encouraging all these other women.
Yeah.
They're looking at you, and they're getting all that feedback from you.
Man, well, it's been a really, really interesting conversation. I think we're at a perfect spot where we can kind of, finish it, in a good
wrap it
note.
up. Yeah.
But before we finish, I want to just kind of leave you guys, the last few minutes. I don't know if you guys had any. You guys gave us a lot of advice. There's definitely a lot of stuff that I have to go back and rethink and maybe do different. I don't know about cleaning the house, but maybe. And then,
start.
but I don't know if you guys want to take a couple of more minutes and then just kind of any last words of advice that you guys would give to the people.
So if there's one thing that we should be consistent with, I think is like our prayer time, and definitely find time. One thing that I do remember is I would always struggle with inconsistency in my devotional time. Like it was a struggle. Like I would, even when I was younger, even before AJ, and so I'm not sure how many of us can relate. Like, oh, I'm going to pray. And then the day would go by and it's like you prayed walking, but you never like got down on your knees to pray. And I think as children of God, yes, we should be praying constantly, but you have to find that moment to where you can kneel, where you can have a conversation with God. Because I guarantee you that in those moments, God will speak. God is still speaking, but we're not giving him time. We're not allowing him to speak because we're not listening. And so I just encourage you, just like I was struggling with inconsistency, there was something I wanted to do, and that was I needed to be consistent with my prayer time. And once that happened, I began to find my purpose. God began to lead me, to speak to me, to help me overcome things that I didn't even know I was like going through, He started revealing to me things that I didn't even know I was struggling with. And so I just encourage anybody who is watching, anybody who is listening, even if like you haven't received Jesus, or you once received Jesus and strayed away, God is ready to listen to us. And so if there is one thing to be consistent, I would say prayer life, because as we spoke among us, things happen when we pray. And so if that's something you're struggling with, like make the time, I think as it's so important. We cannot
Oh, for sure.
live. We cannot give people advice. Like, how can we give people what we had not yet even received? You know, and so I think that for me, that's advice. That the advice I can give you.
That's very true. That is
prayer.
very true. What about you?
Yeah,
Melvin? How do you play with the best bands in the world and not even get nervous?
You know, one of the things that I want to bounce off of Vero is, you know, and I always challenge her, and I always challenge myself, and I always challenge people, is let's do our part in the private, because God is going to honor you in the public.
Amen.
But if you're not preparing yourself for the public, then you're only doing half of the part. You got to a point where you said that you felt like you were praying, you had enough, and you're like, okay, but what do I do with this full cup?
Yeah.
And I think I'm very, and Vero knows this, I'm like, okay, well, what are you going to do now? What's your next step? You know, like, okay, you educate yourself so much, but what are you going to do with that? It does you no good for you only to know it and not share it and disciple. And I'm big on discipleship. I'm big on putting it on others. And I think that's where I want to follow up with that.
Yeah.
Pray. I'm not going to
awesome.
down mean pray. She's already touched on the importance of it. But what are you doing to take the next step? You know, find that place, ask God, be detailed with God. Say, look, God, you're filling me up with this knowledge, you're filling me up with this ability, and I'm perfecting my craft. Something that I heard somebody tell me is, God is not going to make you like the best musician. He's not going to make you the best teacher. He's going to give you a desire to seek him more and to want to excel in that talent. But it's your responsibility to perfect your talent.
Yeah.
So find what drives you to be able to reach out to people, to be able to connect with people, and to honor God in everything that you do.
Cool.
Whether it's in the four walls of the church or whether it's for the kingdom of God in your own way. So we love you guys, and that's kind of where I wanted to share.
That's really cool. And I think that if I could add anything to it, probably shouldn't be adding, but
Go ahead, bro.
no, if I could add anything to it is as I'm listening to you guys, and as I think back at the last conversations that we've had with other people, I would say surround yourself with people who want to grow as much as you want to grow, because being open about it, being open about conversation is what makes us grow as humans, right? And so I think one of the best things that I can give God thanks for is for having friends like you guys, friends who can engage in conversation, even though we don't agree a lot of times in everything, 100%. We can engage, and I can learn a lot from you guys, and from other people. But
and so do we,
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why we started this, so we can kind of share those conversations with anybody else who wants to learn, who wants to listen and grow. And any advice from you?
Never feel like you've grown enough. Like, never feel like you cannot continue to grow.
Right.
I think that's a big
That's
thing
a very
too,
dangerous state of mind to be in.
Yes. Like, never feel like, okay, I'm already, like, to me, I feel like, God, give me more. Like, don't stop. I need to learn. I need more of you. So
keep moving forward.
yes.
No, in the same way, I love having people over. I love it. I like to be the host.
She loves to cook.
I
Yeah,
do.
you're so good at
I
it.
like to cook, and I like to host, and
That's your ministry.
I enjoy. No,
Please do.
Selective hosting.
no, I like to host, but I like to be hosted too.
So invite me over.
No, I have learned a lot. Like Eder said, I'll be taking a lot. And I definitely been praying to God about this. And like Eder said, he's opened this door for us. And hopefully we, come out running and we touch, somebody gets touched by it.
Amen.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I think we're at a good stopping point. So thank you guys again for joining us. It was a pleasure. It was amazing talking to you guys.
For sure.
Always something to learn. And anybody that's watching us, we appreciate you guys sticking with us. If you guys saw this whole thing, I always say it's going to be a 30-minute conversation. It ends up being almost an hour or so.
Never be a 30-minute
But anyways, thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.
Tune in and stay tuned for the next conversation.